Yo, 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 yo. Episode 25 is here on this wonderful day of April. This episode is more of a little storytelling. I sit down with Nicholas Canty, and he shares a story. He actually just approached me on this one, saying that he thought it would just benefit him to go through his story and get it out there, and thought it could help some people. So that's what this one is all about. He gives a little rundown of his life from beginning to current. It was awesome just hearing where he's come from and about his family and everything else. So I hope you enjoy it. Remember, Room 9 has a website, room9podcast.com. Be sure to check it out. Blog's up there, and that's coming. A new one is coming soon as well. We have our contact form you can get on. Fill that out to stay up to date with everything that is happening at Room 9. We have the support page, which is my least favorite to do, but it's necessary. Or anybody, you guys can do a one-time donation or sign up for Patreon, become a patron, and give monthly, which in return you receive something back as well for that. And it's actually been very awesome, the support I've been getting, not only verbally, but monetarily as well. It's really awesome to see people who are getting something out of this, who listen consistently enough to want to give some of their hard-earned money to me. And that strictly goes to equipment, website fees, RSS feeds, everything else that is needed to get this message out there. Advertisement is another one. The more people that I reach through this, the more people can get help and encouragement and everything else along those lines. I am in the middle of, which is something, my vision for Room 9 basically is this, as of now. I'm in the middle of taking classes to become a certified recovery coach. So eventually I would love to file Room 9, get it incorporated, make it a nonprofit, and be able to just offer recovery coach classes along with doing speaking engagements. And obviously the number one thing is this podcast. So I'd be doing some of my most favorite things and helping people along with absolutely helping myself at the same time. Podcasting, speaking, and writing, and just working one-on-one with people, I think is a fabulous idea. So I'm really excited for the future of Room 9. But as always, guys, just you listening is awesome. Send me some feedback about the podcast, whether your favorite episodes, whatever it is, what even you'd like to see, certain topics you want to hear, whatever is on your mind. I just want to know you're out there. It's always encouraging just receiving a little letter or a little note, a little email, whatever it is. Episode 25 with Nicholas Canty. Here it is. I love you guys. Have a good one. All right, Nicholas.
How's it going, buddy?
Turn me down a little bit. What's going on, man? Yeah, so we're doing a Room 9 podcast. And as many times as I've driven you around, I guess I really don't know too much of what has happened in your life.
I'm pretty...
in your fresh 22 years of existence, right?
22 years, a lot has happened. I don't really get into it with the people I surround myself with. I feel like I'm more of a keep it in kind of guy and deal with it myself. It's like few people know exactly what's been going on in my life. But I feel like I haven't really voiced it in a serious way, and I think that in my recovery, I need to do that for me.
Yeah, you approached me.
I did.
You sent me a text saying, I think it would be good for me to kind of get my thoughts straightened out and say some shit that I need to say.
Yeah, I mean, everything's been going solid. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have my bad days, but the other day when I woke up, I was like, dude, maybe I should just talk about it in a serious way and get down to business about what really happened these last, 7 years?
7 years.
7 years is when it all started. Well, I wouldn't say that. I should say I smoked weed when I was like 12 and like 13. Obviously, that's a pretty common thing to do. But I really didn't get into the hard stuff until I was about 15. 15 is really when shit started hitting the fan with me.
So yeah, still pretty young.
Yeah. It was really hard to adjust because I came from a friend group that was the sport group. Everyone had great families. We all were pretty close. And then I switched schools and everything changed once I switched schools. I went from a Catholic school to a public school.
So that was your game changer. And was that when you were 15?
Yeah. I switched when I was in 7th grade. So
So
12, 13.
Basically right before high school. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a friend that went there who's my best friend, and that's the only reason I wanted to move to the public school was because he got to go there, and I wasn't able to. But I had to wait an extra year till my brother was old enough to go to the middle school so we could both go. And once I got there, I joined a friend group that was 2 years older than me.
Okay.
So I was hanging out with the 8th graders when I was in 6th grade. And this guy named Brian kind of like took me under his wing, I guess you could say. He was like my best friend. Obviously, he was 2 years older than me. And we just smoked pot, shot the shit on a regular basis.
Were you involved in like sports and shit?
Yeah, I was playing baseball.
Okay.
I played baseball, football. I was more heavily involved in the baseball. Baseball was kind of my family sport. My brother is still playing baseball for college. So we were pretty hardcore into baseball.
What's the age difference between you and your brother?
15 months.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're pretty close. We've always been on the same teams and everything. But yeah, like I said, I got into this friend group and I was introduced to a lot of things I didn't know existed. That was pretty much where I was for the next 2 years. I was pretty stable right there, still going to school. I was pretty decent in school.
So maintaining, just kind of doing those little extra things here and there.
Oh yeah, it was more definitely a weekend thing. My mom was pretty locked on tight during the week. She didn't really play, so I was not
like home this time, homework, dinner.
I hadn't hit my rebellious stage yet. I'm still building up to it during this time. So obviously things progressed over the next course of the year. So I jumped full force into it. Definitely head first into the drug world. Yeah, and it escalated.
So would you say it was more like just curiosity?
Yeah, for sure.
That pretty much what just got you into it and got you going?
I'm a guy that likes to learn. I like knowledge. I like as much as I can get about it. And I felt like if I'm not doing these things, how am I going to learn about them?
So you're like an empiricist, like you need the first-hand
experience.
All right.
Yeah, so that was definitely something that was new to me. My brother, I have a brother and 2 stepsisters. I think my mom married when I was like 15, 16.
Okay.
I might even say 14. I really can't put a date on it.
Did you know your dad?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I am my dad. My brother's dad is my dad. That's the guy I consider my real dad. But my real dad bounced at a young age. I couldn't even be a year old when he bounced.
So you were really young, all right.
Yeah, so I really didn't get affected by that. I didn't know about my dad until I was like 7. And then at that time, obviously, I'm not even coherent to know what's going on.
Yeah, you're still, 7, I feel like you're still in the moment of existence, Yeah, what's
exactly.
going on now is what you know, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, so I was in court, and they did the whole adoption thing, and I was like, oh, cool. I got a teddy bear out of it. I don't want to blame it on that because, like I said, I was good. I had everything I needed. That guy didn't even come in my mind, never once. And the family situation was good. My family's a loving family. They're always willing to give a helping hand. So I don't think it was for my family. I more think it was a curiosity thing. And then once I got that feeling of, oh shit, it's about to get real. that's when I fell in love with the whole rebellious stage, and going into my 14, 15-year-old age, that's when stuff really started getting real. When I was 14, I was starting to skip school. My friends had free periods because obviously they're older.
They were older, so they had study halls and shit. Yeah.
And if you had a study hall at the end of the day, after lunch, you were allowed to go home. I didn't have a study hall. I had a study hall, and then I had English. So I skipped English. I think I missed 76 days just to go because my friends were smoking weed without me. I skipped it to go smoke weed with my friends. How sickening that I almost threw my life away. So I had to bust my ass really hard over high school, but I always came out with stellar grades. Like my mom would say, you haven't brought in a book home the entire time I've had you go to school, and you passed still. So I was lucky to be blessed with a good mind.
Because you had to maintain grades to play baseball and shit, right?
Yeah, I think you had to maintain a 75 overall. So obviously if you're skipping a class 76 days out of the year, your overall is probably going to cave hard with a 0 out of it. So yeah, I got kicked off the baseball team my JV year, and then the next year after that, I got kicked off again. So 2 years in a row, I got kicked off the baseball team. But we'll get more into that later. That's when I was like a senior and stuff. So 14 and 15, I started popping pills. A little Percocet here, a little Vicodin here. I was more of the downer guy. Uppers were not my thing. I prescribed Vyvanse to help me with school. So I was on Vyvanse for like 8 to 14 months, I think.
That's crazy.
In that period.
How old were you when you were prescribed that?
Probably, like 14 or 15. Damn. They put me on this stuff called Strattera, and it made me really depressed because it wasn't an amphetamine. So obviously in my head, I'm like, I want the amphetamine.
Yeah.
I want the real deal. And he ended up putting me on it. And honestly, had he not put me on it, I probably wouldn't have passed.
So you think it helped you out then?
It helped me out with school, but then once you start abusing them, that's when it becomes a problem.
Which usually is what happens.
Yeah. So I got off of them. I said, I'm sick of being wired up all day.
Hey, so you got off them while you were in school?
Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive. Yeah.
It was tough because you got to adjust to doing the work on yourself now and not the Adderall doing it for you. So yeah, it was tough. But then I fell in love with downers. 14, I was popping Percocets, and then when I turned 15, I walked into my buddy's room, and they were all just sitting there nodded out, and I'm thinking, damn, these guys really been snorting a lot of pills today. And my buddy looks at me and he says, hey, there's something on the table, go do it, I'll pay you for it, and then you don't have to pay me for it. And I was like, well, whatever, it's probably just a pill. Sniffed it and immediately fell out, boom, smacked my head on the table, was rocked. But I woke up 3 hours later and I found the love of my life. There was not a better feeling I've ever had in my life until that day. And I still remember it. I still remember that whoosh.
That warmth.
Yeah.
I always explain the dope feeling like it was like a warm hug from God himself.
Literally.
Or herself, depending on your point of view.
After that day, I threw everything else out the window. It was all about the big old H. So
literally all your morals, ethics, everything goes right out the window for that drug.
I knew the moment I woke up that my life was never going to be the same again. And at least until I did something about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I watched my friends over the course of the next 2 years throw their lives away as I threw my life away. I told myself, look at me. I'm a good looking guy. People still love me because I had 2 friend groups. I had the drug using friend groups and I had my sports friend group. And everyone loved me in the sports friend group still. No one was questioning me. They still invited me to parties. Like I was still the shit. And then on the weekends or the weekdays, I would show my drug using friends. Terrible idea. Terrible idea. I should have switched it up, but it probably would have gotten to that point.
But yeah, you're playing both sides of the game. I mean, that was the way to do it.
It's hard. It's hard to keep up with that, especially after I turned 16. I had probably been using dope, a year, a little less than a year. And it wasn't anything like every day. I was, a couple day warrior. Sniff a line here, you can do that. Never was banging up or anything like that. When I turned 16, I really just kind of gave up. That's when skipping school didn't even have to happen because I was getting high in the bathroom and walking back to class. It's definitely something that no one around me knew what was going on. They knew I was Nick Canty, but they didn't realize what was happening behind that door. It was tough to keep up with.
That front is.
It's very hard to keep that front.
When you get into the heavy drugs like that, man, there's a point where you don't even care about the front anymore, where it goes right out the window. I mean, in my case, I was stealing from a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. The money that they'd get for Christmas and birthdays and holidays, like with no remorse, like no second thought to it. Just, I need to get high. I'm taking this.
It kind of gives you like that shaking feeling, right? It's like, you feel just disgusting about yourself. And it's something that I hate to revisit, but I know I have to because if I don't revisit it every so often, I won't remind myself of where I've come from.
That's a huge part of it, is talking about it and staying with it, because all of a sudden I see it in so many addicts where it just starts building up and they forget about that shame of the messed up, terrible, fucked up things we've done and just remember that first time I got high and how great that felt. But I forget about everything else that came with it. I see it so many times in relapse. I mean, it's the number one thing.
It's tough. I think that people are scared to revisit their past. It's definitely a hard thing to do. It's not easy looking at yourself and saying, damn, dude, you were a scumbag. And you have to accept it at some point. 16, I started stealing from my mom and my grandma. I had stolen before that, but it got really bad when I turned 16. I probably cashed out on my grandma for like $9,000 before she even knew about it.
That's crazy.
I was cashing her checks, And then the police called me and they said, Mr. Canty, we have 29 checks here for over $400, and your grandma doesn't have any money in her account anymore. So my 60-year-old grandma turned down pressing charges on me and lost out on like $9,000.
Damn.
Just to make sure I was safe and I didn't have to go to, like, let's say juvie or something like that, which I did go to juvie for a weekend. And then my mom, I started cashing her old checks. She had a pack of old checks she didn't use anymore that didn't have the same last name as her, but were linked to the account. So I stole that checkbook and I wrote a bunch of checks. Same thing happened. She didn't press charges on me, and I got lucky. My mom and my grandma suffered hard when I was 16, and I could never repay that debt to them. But it didn't stop there.
Nope.
It did not stop there. When I got into 17, I was going towards the end of my high school. Obviously, I'm going to be a senior. Things are going to change. Shit's about to get real. I'm no longer going to be living at mom and dad's house anymore. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And now I'm shooting dope and smoking crack. And that's where I'm at right now. My weekends are sitting in my room with one or two of my buddies, smacking dope and smoking crack. So it was hard to come to realize that, like, dude, you're going to be living at your parents' house for the rest of your life if you can't get out of this. Mm-hmm. I had a big epiphany one night. I went through like a little LSD phase because I read up that psychedelics, and taken in the proper way, can help take away the addiction out of your head. Other people swear by psychedelics. I don't want to say it, quote unquote, curing your addiction and just making it go away.
I'm a huge fan of using them in psychotherapy to help with not even only addiction, with just self-awareness and improving yourself and your own individuality. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge thing. I think, like you said, taken in the right way, setting where you are with intention and having those things. I think they're a huge tool and aren't researched and studied enough, especially with addiction. I think there's something ibogaine, it's called. It's like a bark of a tree found in Africa that is huge with heroin addiction. Mm-hmm. But none of this stuff is ever researched.
I think people are scared of the fact that they won't be able to make money off addicts if they have this solution.
That I even take it a step farther and say people are scared of
going through that.
Human beings becoming more self-aware. Mm-hmm. And being like, hey, hold on.
This ain't right.
Start questioning things. And
I've experienced a lot with LSD, probably more than I could say I'm just experimenting with. Like, there was definitely a point in my time where I just wanted to get rocked, and I knew that this was a cheap way to get rocked. But you really got to talk yourself up to it. Because if you're not in a good mindset and you're not in a good environment,
oh boy, you better hold on.
Yeah, you can freak out. I've had a freak out before. I took way too much and I freaked out. But yeah, so I was trying to do a microdose. I was saying, if I take a small amount of LSD for 3 months or 2 months or whatever the amount of time it was, I can't remember, at the end of it, I will become more self-aware and this addiction might be gone. So one night I was sitting there with my buddy, and we were on Main Street in Batavia with our shirts off at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, actually, no, 4 or 5, because the sun was just coming up. And I was sitting there bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, dude, we got to do something. Like, my buddy that was sitting next to me didn't even use dope. He was just there. Mm. And I was like, dude, we just got to do something. I think I was more talking to myself. Mm-hmm. And that day I decided I was going to join the military and I was going to change my life. So the next day, shirt off still, same clothes, sweat pouring down my face, I walked down to the recruiting station and said, sign me up.
What branch?
Navy. I was going for the Navy. My buddy wanted to be a SEAL, and the only reason I went was because he wanted to go. I wasn't going to do it by myself. And when he got there, he has a metal rod in his elbow, so he has to do a lot of things before he can get accepted in the military. But I was good to go, and all I had to do was sign the paper. So I signed it, I joined, and he ended up not joining. What a fucking...
He's like, never mind, I'm good.
When you go for special ops, that's a hard life to live. You got to do 8 months of training before you can even be told that you're a Navy SEAL.
Oh, that shit's no joke.
Yeah, and they torture you. Like, you are going to come out of there a different person. So I understand. I understand why he didn't want to do it, but that didn't stop me from doing it. So I signed up. And for the next however much time it was before I left, I still continued to use. My recruiter was looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I was getting piss tested every month. I had a meeting every month, and he would piss test me, and I fail every month. And I'd look at him and be like, sorry, dude, I don't know what to tell you. If I pass, before I go, I pass. So 2 weeks up until I left for boot camp in June of 2016 or 15, I want to say. I can't remember. 3 weeks before, I went to rehab, and they put me on Suboxone. So a week before I left for boot camp, I'm withdrawing from Suboxone, going to boot camp for 2 months. I went to boot camp, and for the first 4 weeks...
So you're going through withdrawal in boot camp?
In boot camp, and no one had a damn clue what was going on, dude.
Oh, man.
I went into boot camp at 127 pounds, and I came out at 172. How crazy, right?
The only motherfucker goes to boot camp and gains 30 pounds. Everybody else is losing weight.
While I'm going through withdrawal. It was a tough night, a tough experience. I had shit to do all day, so that didn't bug me. It was at night when I'm laying there,
laying alone in your head.
An hour or two of sleep I got probably for the first 4 weeks. I was running off of probably 2 hours of sleep each night because I couldn't sleep because my body was just aching. And they had me on a high dose before I left the rehab. I was taking 8 milligrams a day.
Damn.
So that's a lot to come off of after 2 weeks of taking them. It was a tough experience, but I came out on top. I graduated, and I got picked to go to Washington, D.C. to be a ceremonial guardsman for the Navy. And I didn't know what to expect. I had to go through another 2 months of training for that, and then I became a casket bearer. Mind you, since the day I've gone to boot camp, I've been clean. Well, the week before boot camp, or however long. I'll say the week because I was taking the Suboxone during those 2 weeks. So a week before boot camp is when I got clean, and now at 4 months after, I'm still clean.
How were you feeling physically, mentally at that point?
I felt good. I felt on top of the world. I felt like, damn, dude, this junkie that I was just got to go to one of the most elite commands in the world. And people kill to go to this command, dude. And I got there just based off of my looks. I was a good-looking guy that was 6 foot tall. It was awesome. I had a lot of good friends there, a lot of good people. I was pretty honest about my addiction. I kind of slacked on it. I went to the bar on the weekends, and I would drink. So I guess you can't really call it clean, but at the same time, I wasn't shooting dope. So I consider that, in my eyes, I was doing good. And I'm in the Navy. Like, obviously, I'm going to drink. Everyone around me drinks. They drink every day. It's just bound to happen. So I would go out to the bars on the weekends with my buddies, and honestly, this is like where it just gets crazy. I went into the bathroom one day, and mind you, this is after like 2 years, probably like a year and a half. I went to a bathroom at the bar, and I saw a dude just snorting a line of coke in the middle of the bathroom, and I was off to the races. Gone. Didn't even think about it. I hadn't been put in a position to see hard drugs in front of my face.
So this was the first time you've encountered.
And I was weak, and I failed. And within 20 seconds, I was sniffing that cocaine like there was no tomorrow. And honestly, it's actually just kind of crazy that the circumstances that led up to that point, like, I didn't even have to use the bathroom. I was just going to wash my hands because I had beer on my hands. I could have gone anywhere to wash my hands, dude. And I went to that bathroom, and I saw what would soon to be my new drug dealer sniffing coke in the bathroom. In the military, I was a casket bearer, so I did funerals every day, 6 a day.
Was it all military-related funerals, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it was all military members, service members that were veterans or fallen soldiers that died in active duty. If you were part of a family, you could get buried at Arlington. We usually didn't do wives, but we did a couple infants because of pneumonia and cancer and stuff like that. That's really what put me in a dark place, especially after I had found the drugs and I started using them regularly. It just all went downhill from there. I wore gloves every day, so I would bang in my hand, and my hands would be covered in marks. And I would go home, and my buddies would be like, "Dude, what's all over your hands?" And I would just lie to them and say,
"From training."
Yeah, I'd say that they were mosquito bites. I never really got any too bad scars, so it was a lot easier to lie about it. And then I met this girl.
Where did you meet her?
I knew her for almost 4 years. She dated one of my friends, and I was dating someone at the time. So when I first saw her, I thought she was the most beautiful girl in the world. But I was dating someone, so I didn't really think twice about it. I kind of just brushed it off, and then full circle, there she is. And she became my wife, and I got married December 20th 2017.
At the age of 13. No. How old were you when you got married?
I was 20 years old when I got married.
That's crazy.
And she was 19. And we didn't have...
I got married at 22, and that's way too young.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome, though, dude. It's crazy how someone can impact your life so much. But it's also crazy how negatively someone can impact your life. So we didn't move in right away. She moved in about, I want to say, a month after we got married. I think it was beginning of February. I can't really remember. Obviously, I'm incoherent at this time. I'm doing my thing. She got down, and she didn't know how bad it was. She witnessed me when we got married. The day I got home, I overdosed in front of her.
Damn.
So she's going into this knowing I've already overdosed in front of her, but she's going to still come live with me. So she was a beautiful soul for that. Beautiful soul. I feel like after that overdose, I was kind of like watched from now on. Things I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to do anything I wanted anymore. I definitely had to step off the pedestal because she's probably thinking, oh, I'm this great guy. I'm in the Navy. I do one of the most elite things anyone can do in the Navy. Besides obviously special ops, I can give those guys full credit. They're awesome. They're war heroes. But yeah, she really looked up to me, and it sucked coming off that pedestal. It sucked.
No, bad. You had the junkie overdose.
Exactly, man. It's a blow to your morale. It really is. When she got down there, we had all our buddies over, and we were all moving in. It was awesome. And that night, I think we threw a little get-together. I got so fucked up. It was so embarrassing how fucked up I got that one night. And I kept leaving to go do my thing. And my buddies would come up to me like, dude, where you been? You've been gone for like 45 minutes. And it was sad. It was really sad that I have this beautiful girl that I'm with, and I'm back down to 145 pounds. My buddies had no idea what was going on. They didn't even think twice about it because they were doing the same things with me. They just weren't doing it as seriously as I was.
As much, as often, yeah.
Like, I had a buddy named Cooper, and I had a buddy named Reed. Totally down to do whatever I wanted with them. They did dope with me a few times, and they smoked a little rock with me a few times. We had this one guy, his name was Ryan, and he was kind of into it, but he wasn't. And he kind of drew the line on both of them and said, yeah, we got to stop this. I didn't stop. I was too into it. And they didn't realize that. So I cut myself off from everyone, and I just did my own thing for a while. I would leave my wife at home for like 8 hours, calling me, crying, friends over at my house, wondering where I'm at. And I would just be sitting in my car right off base getting high because I was too embarrassed to go home and get high in front of my wife. It was disgusting. It was demoralizing, and I didn't feel like a man anymore. I felt like a scared boy that didn't know what he was doing with his life.
It's so crazy, man. Like, you go from that original feeling that you talked about, it was like the greatest feeling you ever had in your life, and then really it's almost like in the snap of a fingers, you feel like this scared little child that has no control over anything anymore.
Nothing, man.
And you're just almost a slave to this chasing this feeling that you originally felt years prior.
I got
such a helpless thing.
After 4 months of being married, I got a really big check because they didn't pay me. Once you're in the military, you get back pay. So if they don't pay you right away after you turn your paperwork in, then any time that's in between that day, you'll get paid for. So I had 4 months worth. My lieutenant came up to me that was in charge of that stuff and said, look at your bank account. And I look at my bank account, and there's $18,000 in it. In the heat of a drug addiction, you want to know where that money went?
That's in
my
veins.
arms, in my hands, in my veins, dude. And I bought a car that I totaled 6 weeks after I got it. I paid $10,600 for a Mustang that I totaled 6 weeks after I got it because I was smoking crack and didn't realize that the light was still yellow, and I was turning over and someone T-boned me.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't sit around to see what happened. I pulled off and drove away. My car was still good enough for me to drive away. Don't get me wrong.
I can only imagine driving the shit kicked out of this car.
My rotor was bent, so my wheel would hit the thing, and it would tear my tire up. So my Mustang sat in my house for like 4 or 5 months after that, not drivable.
What did you say? And obviously you're still married at this time. Your wife just probably knew right away, I'm assuming.
Liz knew everything that was going on. when I was sick or when I was withdrawing and I didn't have anything, she would walk me to the bathroom because I couldn't move. She would stay up late with me and make sure I was all right. So she knew what was going on. She was fully aware of what was going on, but she didn't accept it. She thought that she could change me, but little did she know I was never changing for anyone unless I did it myself. It got to a point where we were at a friend's house one night, Brian and Darian. They were married, and they lived right around the corner from us, and they were all over there having a get-together. At this moment, I walked in the backyard, and I was so twisted, dude, that my wife was just dancing, having a good time, and I thought that she was doing something with another guy, but there was no one there, dude. That's how whacked I was, dude. There was no one sitting there. That's how I was. I think I've been up for like 2.5 weeks. Just go. And after that day, I went home. I got everything I needed. I left. I came back on base, and I overdosed right there. While they were putting me in the drunk tank, I overdosed on the way there. So I went to the hospital. They said, you can either go to rehab or we'll put you on Suboxone. And I said, yep, fuck rehab. Give me the Suboxone. Took the Suboxone, was on the Suboxone for like 4 months. Doing good, living life. And then I dropped the Suboxone, started getting high again.
Where do you think that came from? So you're on the Suboxone for 4 months.
4 months.
So I imagine you're doing fairly well, doing good.
For
and
sure.
then what was that pull? Because that's a huge thing, I find.
I did a funeral. I wasn't involved in the funeral. I was a side piece, so I was witnessing it, and it was for a Navy SEAL that had just died. And
in action.
So we had I think we had 190 Navy SEALs there for this funeral, and we had Humvees, like helicopters going around. Like, this was a big thing. And when I saw like the friends of the whoever was in his platoon, and then his wife and their kids go up, dude, I was just put into such a big depression after that moment that I was like, dude, fuck the Suboxone. I need to go now. So I waited for 3 days, and I came off the Suboxone and went and started shooting dope again. So that was definitely a falling point, and I was doing way more than I was before. I was killing like an 8-ball every 2 days.
It usually goes, yeah.
My Master Chief comes up to me, and he's like, you never failed a drug test, but we know you're fucked up, and I think it's just better for you if you just get out, go get your help. This just isn't for you anymore. So I got a medical discharge for substance abuse. That is very, very uncommon for people to get that. I don't even think that's like by book, like what they can do. I would have to look at my DD-214 to see exactly what the reasoning behind it is, but that's what they told me. So I got a general under honorable conditions for being a drug addict. So again, Nick got out of it. Nick's lucky again, and he gets out of all the trouble that he's in. Overdoses twice on base in front of the military police, and his house is deemed unlivable because of all the drugs he's done in there. And he still got out and still gets his benefits.
It's an honorable discharge.
With the general under honorable conditions. See, there's a difference between honorable and general under honorable conditions. There's a few things I don't qualify for that an honorable would do. But yeah, I got a general under honorable conditions, and people probably think that's terrible. They think probably are mad about that. But that's what I got, and it's all because of that Master Chief. I could never thank that man enough. So I left on September 6th, 2018, and I came home. I was prescribed. They gave me a 90-day supply of Suboxone. I sold it all. Immediately went and started using drugs. I thought after I sold it, because I really needed the money, my last check from the Navy wasn't going to come for like 2 months. It's a long process to get your last check. So I needed cash right now. I had 90 Suboxone on me. 180 Suboxone on me, or whatever it totals out to. So I sold them all to go get dope, because I knew I needed money, and after I sold these, it would take me a week to go to another doctor and get another script. So I was not about that. Nope. I think Suboxone withdrawal is worse than dope withdrawal.
It is. Oh, I've seen people when I was in jail, dude. There's people from methadone and Suboxone for a month.
Oh, it's terrible, man. Especially when you've been on it for a
long time.
And that amount is crazy. I was taking it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Suboxone. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Suboxone, everyone. Suboxone is a great way to get clean.
If used correctly.
And I will warn you, the withdrawals are worse than dope. So,
well, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Like, you said go to rehab or get on Suboxone, and just getting on Suboxone and not working on anything else doesn't ever work for anybody.
Oh no, I totally agree that Suboxone has saved me more often than not. But at the same time, I would never put Suboxone over going to rehab and getting help.
There's so much more work, that needs to be done along with being on medical assisted treatment.
A lot of work.
Side note.
I got home and I started a job. I lived at my buddy's house, and my buddy that I lived with used as well. So me and him were rocking and rolling, ripping and running. And obviously I was the only income for that. So it got to a point where instead of paying his parents for living there, I would just say fuck them, and hopefully they just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. So they did. They kicked me out, and I went and lived with
Eventually they did, yeah.
Yeah, I went and lived with my grandma, and my grandma, I lived with her for like 2 weeks, and then my mom came over one night, and I was rocked. And my mom called the police on me, and the police came. I overdosed because I was freaking out, and they took me to the hospital. I woke up, and they took me to jail because of the amount of drugs I had in my bag. I think I got caught with like 50 bags, separate bags the first time, and I stayed there for 3 months, and then they got me into rehab. I went to 291 for 49 days. I met a lot of great people there. I still live with a guy that I met there, which is awesome. I went to rehab when I was 12 years old for marijuana for 30 days at Conifer Park, and that was just a scapegoat to get out of a little trouble I was in. So I didn't know how to approach the whole rehab thing. I didn't know what to expect of it. But honestly, I think and anyone around me who was there at the time, I think I jumped full head into it. I put a lot of effort towards it. I wasn't the one sniffing his subs in the bathroom. I wasn't the guy that was trying to break the rules or get cigs in or stuff like that.
Sleeping all day.
If it was offered, it was offered. But at the time, like I was really focused on myself and getting back together. It's actually kind of funny because I did all this because my wife told me if I didn't get clean, she wouldn't get back together with me. So I did that, and after I went to Freedom Village afterwards, and I did, I think, like 3.5 months there. But during that time, my wife at the time went to boot camp. She joined the Navy.
Really? That's ironic.
Full circle, right? And she went to school in Florida, and then I got that phone call the one day, and they can't do this anymore. So in my head, I thought, damn, dude, I just did all of this work for one reason. And at the end of the day, I had to realize that, yeah, it was for that reason, but at the same time, it wasn't. I knew I needed to get help, and I knew that if I didn't get help, I would go to jail for a long time, and I don't want to be in prison. So I attacked it, man. I thought, you know what? Fuck this chick. I'm doing this. I'm getting it done. I'm gonna get big. I'm gonna do my thing. And I joined an Oxford house by the grace of God. That one of the guys I went to rehab with reached out and said, "Hey man, we got a spot, and I want you here." And I went there, and fucking course, I go to the worst house out of all of them. And
good old Loxley.
Yeah, guys, the Big Locks was my home. Is my home. Will always be my home. Because I met a lot of great people there. Even though circumstances probably don't show that, I met a lot of great people there that I really do care about, and I think are amazing people, and I think they're doing really good with their lives, regardless of the circumstances that happened at that house. And I would always reach a hand out for any of them, no matter what, because they gave me a chance. And I could never thank them enough for it. But yeah, Loxley was a wild experience. I'll be the first to say that. If you plan on going to Loxley's
Oxford houses in general, are challenging.
They are. I mean, they definitely test you. They give you enough rope to hang yourself with, and if you're not comfortable with that rope, you're gonna hang yourself every single time. So,
and even like me being in one, I've had to work so much on being assertive and being patient and how to approach people. There's a lot of other things that continue from rehab to an Oxford house. Not to mention they give you that rope where you can screw up. You have enough freedom to screw up and relapse and fuck up pretty easily. And at the same time, you still get challenged more on things you need to work on in your personality. And that was been one of the biggest things for me, living with 9 other dudes. Like, I got to learn how to be assertive. I got to learn when to know not to. Like, you can't make a big deal out of where they put the coffee mugs, dude. Like, somebody washed them and cleaned them. They're not going to, they don't have to be put back in the same exact way and the handle facing the back and,
Right.
So you learn a lot about yourself and things you need to work on.
I definitely can agree with that. It's hard already living with another person but when you got 9 guys with a lot of testosterone, it's very, very difficult to be on the same page at all times. So yeah, there were definitely some scuffles over at my house. At least I can speak on that. But I definitely 100% think if I would have went a different route, I probably wouldn't have made it. I think that the route that I chose to go was already set in stone before I even knew it, and the people that I met along the way were meant to be there. I don't think it was a coincidence. I don't believe in that stuff. Yeah, stuff does happen, but I totally believe that it's all for one greater purpose. And I couldn't thank the people around me during that process who helped me, even though things didn't turn out the way everyone wanted them to at that house. I still respect and love all you guys that have been there, and I couldn't thank them enough. But anyway, now I'm out of Loxley, and I'm living on my own.
Living on your own?
I am. I am coming up on 20 months of sobriety.
That's beautiful.
20 months of no heroin, no nothing. And I actually want to explain that I am a medical marijuana patient, and I am a Suboxone
Which I think you're the first one
patient.
on the old Room 9. That's medical marijuana.
I am, guys. I am a medical marijuana patient. I have very bad PTSD. When you do funerals for a while, especially in my mind, kind of become accustomed to being around people that are dead and sorrow and sadness and crying, and medical marijuana helps me a lot with I have continuing nightmares, so it helps me sleep. I don't use it overboard. I use it when I need it, and I honestly, it's amazing. It helps me eat, helps me sleep. I understand from a recovery standpoint, it's hard to be around people that are doing that. Definitely hard, right? Probably throwing someone in that's medical marijuana in a house that's full of sobriety and seeing a guy that's toasted is probably hard, but some people need it. And they don't want to go the Suboxone route. They don't want to go the methadone route. And I don't think you should knock it because it's a medicine now, guys. You can get it prescribed.
It's always been a medicine. It's just acknowledged as a medicine now. But I did an episode earlier on. It was like probably in the first 10. It might have been actually episode 10 where I talked about that with a buddy, just the different routes. And I always am a big fan of if putting hard work into yourself and becoming more self-aware and finding the things you need to work on as an individual, it go hand in hand with whether it's cannabis, whether it's Suboxone, whether it's methadone, whether it's Vivitrol, whether it's just constant AA or NA or self-help groups, whatever it is that goes with that and makes and keeps you clean, helps you get your life together, that is the correct way for you. No matter what anybody else says, no matter what anybody else does, if that works for you and you're getting your life in order, then that works for you. Everybody wants their way to be the way. It's really what it comes down to. My way is the way. My religion's the way. My way to recovery is the way. Whatever it is, everybody wants theirs to be right and their only way, which is we're all different. As much as we are all alike psychologically, physiologically, we're all different at the same time.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. If it works for you, do it. Don't let anyone ever deter you from doing what you think is going to work, because you need to fall, dude. I think the only way for you to get better is to fail. No one came out of the womb doing everything perfectly.
Well, to pay attention when you fail.
Yeah, you just gotta learn from your mistakes, and you got. This is why I wanted to do this podcast, because there's a lot of things that I haven't talked about with someone. Even I've had sponsors, and I just don't feel comfortable talking about it. This is the first time I've talked with a man about what's going on in my life, and I needed that. I got that little urge, and I did it. That should be a prime example of you should do whatever makes you comfortable and what you think is going to help you. You think it's easy doing this stuff? No, it's not. Everyone struggles with it. But at the end of the day, if you come up on top, no one can take that away from you.
I did want to ask you, I didn't want to stop you because you're on a roll. But what was it like? I don't know if you even talked to your mother about it, her calling the cops on you.
I have a really it's
that's a difficult thing to do to your child or husband, whatever. You know, in my case, my girlfriend had to call it, that I've been with for over 5 years, but at the time we were a little over 4 years together. And she ended up having to call the cops on me, and having her share the story on 2 podcasts and stuff. Like, she picked up the phone, hung it up, crying, picked up the phone, hung it up, crying. Like, it took her 3 or 4 times to even get to the point where she can do it.
I got 4 words for that. It saved my life. If she didn't call the cops on me that day, I'd be dead. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't think it was the right move. I thought I could do it by myself.
Yep.
But honestly, that woman, she knows more than I think she knows, and I couldn't thank her for that because literally it saved my life. Those felonies saved my life. It sucks because they're going to be with me for the rest of my life, but had they not been there, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you. Sometimes you got to show tough love to some people, man.
Especially in addiction.
Yeah.
That's usually what it comes down to in the end.
I don't believe in telling people what to do, but when you see someone that's going down the wrong path and they just keep making the same mistakes over and over again, if you love that person, you're gonna intervene at some point. You're not gonna sit around and just watch them fall. Mm-hmm. I could tell you how many times. You want to know how many times my friends called me to make sure I was okay?
Zero.
You want to know how many times my mom called me? Thousands. Mm-hmm. Thousands of times. My ex-wife the same way. She still checks up on me. Hundreds of miles away, and she still checks up on me after all the fucking shit I put her through. It's just, don't take for granted. When people are getting on you about it, it's because they love you. It's because they care about you and they want to see you do better. It's not because they're just being dickheads. Yeah, there's that one dickhead out there that's always a dickhead. And you probably got someone like that in your family, but if someone genuinely cares about you and they love you, they only want to see you do better. They're not going to sit around and watch you deteriorate.
Yeah, and another thing I share that I've had people on and family members of is the importance of family education on how to react and how to go about doing that tough love with your addict loved one, whatever it may be. And that's another big thing I love pushing out there.
Yeah, my mom, she was really, how do I want to say this, easygoing. I was always allowed to take the car. I was always allowed to have money. I was always allowed to have friends over. My mom was very easygoing. And then once I got back home after the military, there were no more games. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even allowed at her house on her property, or else she said she was going to call the cops because I had stolen so much from her, and she was scared that if I lived at that house, I would die in that house. She changed my room. She cleaned and soaked it through because I was doing my thing, and it's a completely different bedroom. It's not even my bedroom anymore. So yeah, I definitely am a firm believer in, my mom was not educated on how to handle things, but now she is, and I know that if I ever go down that path again,
I'm gonna have to get her on here with an episode with you. I think that would be badass.
My mom is a very inspirational woman. I talk to her every day. My mom's my best friend. One thing I wanted to bring up, I feel like people aren't thankful enough for the people that stick by your side. Like, it's just, I know I just touched on it a little bit about my ex, but like my mom, my dad, my brother, like I said, dude, people that genuinely love you, they'll stand there and they'll make sure that you're okay. So don't give up, because everyone's got someone. And if you don't got someone, you can always call me.
At Nick Canty.
at Nick Canty.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on.
No problem, dude. I really appreciate it.
Showing your courage.
I needed it, man.
This shit ain't easy.
20 months sober. Keep going, guys. I'm telling you.
There you go. All right.
Later.
Room 9, checking out. Alrighty. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed hearing Nick's story. He's an awesome dude, and it's great having people come on here and just kind of give their story. I think he stated in the podcast this is one of the first times in a long, long time he sat down with another human being and just shared what he went through and his family and everything else. So glad you guys listened. I keep saying this, and people tell me the audio quality is fine, but this one drove me nuts. I don't know what the hell happened. I'm going out and getting new cables to just start with that to see. There's like this humming noise that I have to try to get out. Then it makes all the voices all weird sounding. So whatever. Anyway, enjoy your day, guys. Room9podcast.com, support page, contact page. We got a blog up there. New ones coming in the next couple days. I've been a little bit behind with the recovery coach classes I've been taking. It sent me back a few days, but it's coming. And that's all. Get us on social media as well. Room 9 Podcast, at Room 9 Podcast, at Room 9. Search for them. Find us. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr. I think that's it. All right. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.